Deep in the fog-laced woods of Vermont's northeast kingdom lies an abandoned asylum, Grey Hollow, a place shrouded in silence, secrets, and a chilling disappearance that has haunted a town for over 2 decades. In 2001, 26 high school seniors vanished without a trace after daring to step inside those crumbling walls. And then, in 2023, one of them came back, but not the same. She spoke in codes, drew impossible blueprints, and brought warnings no one could ignore. Tonight, we unravel the haunting mystery of the disappearance at Grey Hollow Asylum and the woman who came back speaking in codes. Before we begin, make sure to hit that like button if you're ready to dive into this eerie story. Drop your thoughts and theories in the comments. What do you think happened in Grey Hollow? And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss another deep dive into the darkest mysteries. Now let's step inside if you dare. In the northeast corner of Vermont, where the fog clings to the treetops like secrets too heavy to rise, there's a stretch of land the maps barely acknowledge. Most is called the Kingdom, the Northeast Kingdom. But if you ask anyone who's lived there long enough, they'll tell you another name under their breath: Grey Hollow. Once, long ago, Grey Hollow housed the sick, the forgotten, the discarded, an asylum by name, a prison by function. Its crumbling walls still sit there, nestled beneath rotting pine and tangled brush, like a wound nature tried to heal but never quite could. The records say it closed in 1962. The locals say the screams didn't. For decades, it was just one of those ghost stories told by kids, passed around campfires and under bleachers. An abandoned asylum in the woods, standard fare, until, in 2001, 26 high school seniors from Camden High walked into those woods and were never seen again. They called it a dare, the last challenge before graduation, a test of courage to enter Grey Hollow Asylum and stay until dawn. The town whispered about it even before they left. But they went anyway, cameras in hand, laughter in their throats. Some probably never believed in the stories. They believe now. It wasn't police who found the first clue, not the state, not the FBI. It was a hobbyist, just a man flying a drone through the trees, looking for forgotten beauty in a forgotten forest. June 2023. A rusted shape beneath the canopy. Vines curling through windows like fingers dragging something down. A vehicle barely recognizable. A school van. The video, posted online, went viral within hours. People recognize the make, the color, the shape. It matched the very van Camden High had reported missing 22 years earlier. Half buried. Overtaken by the forest's patient hunger. The search team dispatched that same week found backpacks inside, decayed yearbooks, a moldy Polaroid still frozen in time. Someone had drawn devil horns on the principal's photo. Teenage rebellion captured mid-laugh, now nothing but evidence. And in the very back, beneath a shredded seat cover, bones, a skull, human. But it wasn't just what was found that haunted them. It was the note, scrawled in smeared ink across yellowing paper. They never left. But the handwriting was mirrored, every letter reversed, as though written to be read in a mirror, a child's trick, or a message meant for someone who understood. Recovered from a camcorder battery, strangely intact after all those years. Jordan Reyes' voice laughing faint. Yo, Nia, check this out. It's like a whole room full of old patient files, man. Unintelligible whispering. Voice shift. Deeper, unnatural echo. Mallory. Distorted. Don't trust the light. Screaming. Cut. Authorities initially chalked it up to audio degradation, but audio specialists disagreed. The whispers didn't come from tape warping. They came from something recorded, something in the room. Camden, Vermont, had tried to forget the story. 22 years is long enough for grief to sink, for memory to smooth the jagged edges of horror. Parents moved. Teachers retired. The high school built a new gym. But they never tore down the senior mural from the class of 2001. 26 faces painted in hopeful color. Smiling. Frozen. Underneath, a simple quote. When the news of the van broke, old wounds reopened like fresh ones. The families came forward again, this time older, wearier. Some had believed the kids ran away. Some had hoped they were taken and would come back. Others had resigned themselves to the ache. Judge Harold Walker, whose daughter Nia had been among the missing, held a press conference in front of the courthouse. His voice trembled. We waited 2 decades, and all we got back was a van, a skull, and a note we can't read. The town reopened the investigation. Reporters returned. Paranormal YouTubers filmed at the site, their voices trembling with mock fright, until one of them posted footage of the forest around Grey Hollow distorting, bending subtly, unnaturally, as if something didn't want to be seen. The original asylum blueprints were dredged up, but half were incomplete. Some parts had no electrical drawings. Others had notes in the margins. Do not enter, signed Eli. And that name, Eli, would surface again. But only later, much later. Why was only one skull found in the van? What did the note mean? They never left. And who or what was Eli? Grey Hollow Asylum wasn't always cursed. Built in 1893 as a restoration for the mentally vexed, its stone corridors and vaulted ceilings were meant to be a place of peace. But quickly, the funding dried up. Doctors left. Orderlies became wardens. By 1935, it was renamed Grey Hollow Isolation Facility. Patients began to vanish. Official reports from that era contain odd entries. Patient 47 claimed the basement sings at night. Nurse Atkins, removed after claiming the boiler room, swallowed her keys and screamed her name. By the late 1950s, it was quietly shuttered, not because of funding, but because of fear. The staff refused to stay. A final report, buried deep in archives, was written in trembling cursive and unsigned. It read, "There are rooms we built and rooms we didn't. The patients found the others. We sealed them in. They never left." And then flips it upside down in frustration. As he does, the letters seem to line up with something unexpected on the table beneath, an old patient form. The writing overlaps in a way that spells out, we're still here. The Woods returned a van, but not the 26 who went in. So what else might they return if the stir began? It began like any senior prank. Equal parts foolishness, fearlessness, and pride. 26 students from Camden High, class of 2001, made a pact. After graduation ceremony, they'd pile into a borrowed school van and head north into the woods. The goal? Spend one night inside the infamous Grey Hollow Asylum. Film it, laugh about it, leave with a story no one else would dare repeat. They called it the final dare. No teachers knew. No parents approved. And the driver of the school van, a senior named Marcus Bishop, star quarterback, had borrowed it without permission, planning to return it before anyone noticed. By 6:12 p.m., they were on the road, crammed shoulder to shoulder, packed with camcorders, snacks, cigarettes, and urban legend swagger. The van's tape deck blasted a burned CD with a scratched track list that included Radiohead, Limp Bizkit, and one cryptic, handwritten label. Track 11, do not play. Nia Walker sat in the front passenger seat, arms crossed, always observant. She was the class valedictorian, daughter of the town judge. She once told a teacher she wanted to map the human brain, so no one ever had to feel lost inside it again. But today, she was letting herself be reckless, for once. Mallory Stein, the quiet one, rode near the back. She kept a sketchbook in her lap, always drawing, always watching. Her eyes seemed too old for 17. She had a thing for abandoned places. Her bedroom was wallpapered in photos of ruins. Maybe Grey Hollow was a dream come true, or a nightmare waiting to be recorded. Jordan Reyes, the prankster, sat in the middle aisle with his trusty camcorder glued to his shoulder. He narrated everything in a fake documentary voice. Here we have an endangered senior, drunk on rebellion, and documented it all, right up to the gate. The last voicemail he ever left his sister was short. A joke. If we find any ghosts, I'm charging rent. As the van creaked to a stop outside the rusted asylum gate, the woods swallowed them in a fog that rolled in unnaturally fast. Too fast. One of the students later described it, posthumously in a written note, as if the trees breathed out all at once. The asylum was quiet, towering, its windows like empty eyes, staring back. No birds, no insects, no wind. Still, they climbed the rusted fence and slipped through a broken panel in the side door. Once inside, they split into smaller groups, agreeing to film different wings of the building for maximum scare footage. That was the last time all 26 were seen together. Only 2 minutes of video were ever recovered. Footage! Faint flashlight beams swaying in darkness. Jordan, laughing, Nia, you're gonna love this. Look, old med files from like the 40s. This place is a literal horror movie. Mallory, don't touch anything. Cut to peeling wallpaper with symbols scratched underneath. Marcus, off camera, looks like a snake eating itself. Jordan, yo, that's called an Ouroboros. I saw that in science class. Faint audio, whispering, not from the group. Mallory, suddenly serious. Did you hear that? Nia, there's someone else here. Audio distorts. End of tape. Mallory Stein's phone sent a voicemail to her mother. Static at first, garbled. Then a single phrase emerged, distorted but intelligible. Don't trust the light. When the voicemail was analyzed, technicians noticed something odd. Beneath the audible signal was a reversed audio track. Played backward, it revealed a deeper voice, male, commanding low. They're not ready yet. What light was she talking about? A flashlight? A hallway lamp flickering from an old generator? Or something else? At first, the school thought it was just an elaborate stunt, a teenage rebellion, a joke taken too far. But by the second day, with no students returning home, panic took hold. The local sheriff's department mobilized. State search and rescue joined in. Helicopters swept the tree line. Dogs followed trails into forest, but lost the scent entirely near an old logging path that led nowhere, until someone noticed a gate buried beneath ivy. It led to Grey Hollow. Inside they found nothing. No students. No signs of habitation. No sleeping bags. No graffiti. Not even fresh footprints. Just dust, stillness, and shadows too deep for their source. The town churned with speculation. Parents clung to hope. Students whispered about hidden rooms and ghostly figures. The media went wild. 26 teens vanish in asylum dare night. Cult symbols discovered in old blueprints. One janitor at Camden High came forward anonymously, said he saw a group of students weeks earlier, Mallory among them, photocopying something in the teacher's lounge. Blueprints of Grey Hollow. I didn't think anything of it, he said. But now I wonder, how did they get those? And why were they altering them? He showed the police a discarded sketch Mallory had left behind. It showed a floor plan of Grey Hollow, but with one difference, an additional staircase that spiraled downward into nowhere. It was labeled in pencil, the below. They planned enter the asylum, but what if something else planned to meet them there? After 2 weeks, the official search was called off. No bodies, no wreckage, just a van, stolen, assumed to be dumped somewhere off-site. 26 families gathered in a candlelight vigil on the school field. 26 candles flickered. Rain fell that night, but only on the field. The rest of the town stayed dry. The old folks called it a marking. One local, a woman who used to volunteer at Grey Hollow in the 1960s, came forward with a warning. She claimed it was a priest who once worked in the asylum. Not a real priest, but a man the patients called Father Eli. He ran a spiritual ward down below the main floors, she whispered. No doctors, just hymns and silence. They said he promised them freedom, but only after they gave up time. 2 years later, an anonymous letter was mailed to Camden's police station. No return address. Inside, a single sentence written in block letters. They're not dead. They're choosing. Attached was a photo, black and white, grainy. It showed a group of children walking through what looked like a corridor lit by strange lanterns. All 26 heads blurred, but one girl stood in sharp focus. Mallory Stein, smiling, holding a map. By the time the last search team left the woods behind Grey Hollow Asylum, the town of Camden had already begun to fracture. 26 students, gone. No ransom letters. No crime scene. No calls. The parents waited in their homes, staring at untouched dinners and ringing phones that never held the right voice. Camden's heart had been ripped out, and in the void came whispers. At first, the local sheriff, Douglas Varnes, tried to keep things grounded. It's a runaway situation, a mass prank that got out of hand. Teens under pressure, looking for one last thrill. But 26 runaways vanished without a trace, with no electronic trails, no credit card usage, no sightings. Varnes couldn't explain that. And then came the school's internal investigation. Teachers were questioned. The guidance counselor, Mrs. Kenley, swore she'd overheard Jordan Reyes and Marcus Bishop planning some big finale. They were laughing, she said. They called it the last Camden Crown stunt. I didn't think it was serious. But when authorities combed through the student lockers, they found things that didn't match a joke. Mallory's sketchbook, hidden behind a ceiling tile, filled with floor plans no one recognized. Jordan's second camcorder, missing its memory tape, but still powered on in his locker. And in Nia Walker's locker, a photo of Grey Hollow from 1965, with a handwritten caption, "Built for the broken, sealed by the unseen." No one knew who wrote that. Camden changed. Banners that once read, "Congratulations, class of 2001, were torn down. Parents stopped making eye contact. The graduation ceremony was canceled retroactively. Some students who had skipped the dare night were accused of hiding something. One girl, Lacey Bremer, was hospitalized after being attacked by an angry mother who screamed, "Why did you come back?" People needed someone to blame. They'd picked each other. The local paper changed its masthead color to gray. The church began holding candlelight vigils every Friday. Camden High's principal, Mr. Doler, took early retirement. It started on online message boards, the kind where usernames were strings of numbers and facts blurred with fiction. Post titles like, Grey Hollow wasn't just a hospital, it was a holding cell. Symbols match Forgotten Vermont Cult. Who is Father Eli? People claim the asylum had secret ties to a religious sect in the 1940s, one shut down by the state for unethical isolation practices. Some said patients were buried on the property in unmarked graves. Others claimed to have photos of sublevels beneath the asylum, corridors that spiraled downward, far beyond the documented blueprints. And then someone uploaded a new version of Mallory's sketchbook, digitized, annotated. On page 17, beside a drawing of a spiral staircase, were 3 words written in reverse. A month after the search ended, Camden High's janitor, Mr. Leonard Briggs, came forward. He didn't go to the press. He went to a bar and told a drunk stranger who recorded him. They weren't just going up there for fun. Mallory and Jordan, they were studying it. Every lunch break, I'd find them near the old archives room, scanning microfilm, making copies. They found something. I didn't know what, but Mallory once told me, we're not going to be part of the cycle. Cycle? She said the place doesn't keep people. It recycles them. The recording ends with Briggs whispering. And you know what's worse? I think they wanted to go. What would make a group of teenagers willingly disappear? Was it curiosity? Or did something call them? In the years that followed, Grey Hollow became a landmark of forbidden grief. The fence was repaired. No trespassing signs were nailed into trees. But people still came, especially on anniversaries. Sometimes to mourn, sometimes to see if anyone came back. And sometimes things were found. In 2002, a rusted locket was discovered near the outer gate, matching one Marcus Bishop's sister described in his yearbook photo. In 2004, a hunter found symbols carved into birch trees, symbols not known to any alphabet, but matching those from Mallory's sketchbook. And in 2005, a VHS tape was mailed to the sheriff's department. No label, no fingerprints. The footage was damaged, but showed a long corridor, walls smeared with handprints, and a whisper in the background. They're watching the wrong door. The tape was analyzed by forensic media specialists. One audio technician noticed that in the background, reverse, was a Gregorian chant, but one that didn't match any known liturgy. A linguist at the University of Vermont reviewed the carved symbols and proposed they were not a cipher, but a conceptual map. She called it a spatial language. It's not writing, she said. It's a code for movement, like how to get somewhere. But to where? In fall 2006, Camden High officially shut down. Enrollment had dropped to less than 100 students. Too many families moved away. Too many refused to let their children attend the school where the van left. The building now sits empty. Vines crawl across the entrance. The gym floor buckled from water damage. But in room 212, the old art room, Mallory's sketches remain, faded, taped to the wall. Unremoved, one says simply, time loops from below. They disappeared in silence, and the world moved on. But what if silence was just the sound of something listening? The air was colder than it should have been that morning. Deputy Eliza Morton had just poured her second coffee when the front door of the Lamoille County Sheriff's Office creaked open. It didn't slam. It didn't rush. It creaked like something older than the building itself had pushed it. At first, Eliza thought she was seeing a ghost. In a way, she was. The woman standing in the doorway was barefoot, her legs streaked with dried mud. Her gray T-shirt hung in shreds, as if she crawled through the woods for miles. Her hair was long, tangled, and matted with leaves. She didn't speak, not in words anyone understood, but she held something in her hands. A folder, stitched together from what looked like tree bark and pages torn from medical records. Inside, blueprints, dozens of them, all hand-drawn. Eliza approached her slowly. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" The woman lifted her head. Her lips moved, and the words that came out were soft, hoarse, and reversed. "Emplaceup." Within hours, she was airlifted to Fletcher Allen Medical Center. The media was kept out. Doctors examined her vitals. Malnourished, severe dehydration, frostbite scars on her feet, early signs of PTSD. She had no ID, no belongings. She responded to no names until they said one. Mallory? Her head turned, just slightly. DNA was pulled. The results returned 3 days later. There was no margin of error. Mallory Stein, missing since June 10, 2001, had returned. But only one question mattered now. Where had she been? Mallory wouldn't speak in normal patterns. Her words came out backward, phonetic mirrorings that made transcription nearly impossible. Linguists and cognitive scientists were brought in. Some said it was brain trauma. Others said it was self-preservation. But what she did do was draw. Endlessly. Obsessively. Blueprints. Rooms that didn't match any documented section of Grey Hollow Asylum. Hallways that looped. Staircases that descended without landing. Symbols. Always the same symbols. One sheet had a series of stick-figure children, standing in a circle, arms linked, while one lay in the middle, limbs bent at impossible angles. Another showed a spiral, drawn with such force the pencil tore the paper. And in the center of that spiral, a name. Eli. Sheriff Lena Cordell, who had taken over after Varnes retired, received a full file on Mallory's return. She wasn't from Camden originally, but she remembered the case. When she saw the new blueprints, her jaw tightened. One section of the drawings depicted a false wall behind what used to be the asylum's surgical ward. Behind it, a narrow stairwell descending into what Mallory labeled only as below. Sheriff Cordell called in the state forensic unit. They organized a team. 2 weeks later, in early November, Grey Hollow was unsealed for the first time in over a decade. The building groaned with memory. Cracked tile, rusted gurneys. A silence so deep it buzzed. The surgical ward's wall was exactly where Mallory said. Ground-penetrating radar confirmed a hollow space behind it. They broke through the plaster. Behind it, a passage that sloped downward, and what lay beyond the wall had no record in the state's architectural registry. How did she know what was never meant to be found? And what did she leave behind to come back? What they found was this: graffiti and unknown symbols, repeating around doorways, spiraling across ceilings, remnants of decayed clothing, still attached to rusted name tags from Camden High. An old projector, melted but still intact, marked property of Grey Hollow, restricted. And bones, 12 sets, some full, others fragmented. One group arranged in a circle. Tests confirmed the bones belonged to some of the missing students. The coroner noted unusual fractures, twists and compressions inconsistent with natural collapse. And then came the relics. A shattered chalice, a journal bound in stitched leather. No ink, only symbols pressed into the pages with something hot. A mural carved into stone. Figures in robes standing beneath a floating eye. Below them, children kneeling. One investigator would later say, "It didn't feel like we were beneath something. It felt like we were inside something alive." 2 days after the discovery, Mallory woke up screaming. For 5 minutes, her cries didn't sound human. But when she stopped, she stared at the mirror in her room. "We weren't trapped in the asylum," she whispered. It was her first clear sentence. It was under it. It was watching us. Her voice was hoarse, dry, like sandpaper scraping glass. Every time we slept, one would disappear. Over the next week, Mallory offered pieces of a larger nightmare. She said there was a man. He called himself Father Eli. Not a priest, not a doctor, just a presence. He said we were chosen. That Grey Hollow wasn't closed. It was rebooted, reclaimed. She said he told them, "You will not die. You will cycle. A second life without time." Those who resisted were given to the echo. We never saw it, but we heard it in the pipes, in the spaces behind the walls. Mallory claimed she survived by pretending to be mute. She sketched constantly, hoping they'd see her as useful, not defiant. She waited. She listened. And finally, during a flood, she escaped through a tunnel collapse. The echo couldn't follow water. That's what I believed. That's how I got out. When news spread that Mallory had survived and others had not, Camden split in two again. Some wept, held services, reopened cold case files. Others accused her of fabrication, calling her a disturbed woman who'd survived by running and lying. But no one could explain how she knew the secret basement. And then came the leak. A week after Mallory was placed under psychiatric care, a PDF appeared online, titled only MS 2001 to 2023. It was 64 pages. Her sketches, her blueprints, photos of the bones, symbols and notations, and codes. Reddit forums went wild. One user, claiming to be a cryptanalyst, decoded a recurring sequence in the sketches. The translation? They took the wrong ones. They're not finished yet. Mallory came back from the dead, but did she escape, or did she carry something with her? And if they took the wrong ones, who were they really looking for? By the time the second team entered the hidden level beneath Grey Hollow, the site was under federal observation. Fencing, drones, 24-hour cameras. Sheriff Cordell wasn't allowed past the stairwell anymore. Control had passed quietly into the hands of unnamed federal agencies. But reports still leaked, and the deeper the teams dug, the more the story twisted into something almost no one could rationalize. This wasn't just a secret basement. It was a constructed space with purpose and design, not an accident, not decay, a ritual space. At the base of the stairwell, the structure opened into a chamber roughly 60 feet wide, with walls made of poured concrete, unnaturally smooth, seamless, as if designed with tools more advanced than any used in 1906, when Grey Hollow was supposedly abandoned. There were no doors, no light fixtures, just one raised platform in the center. On that platform, a slab carved with the same spiral that Mallory had drawn repeatedly. Carved around it, symbols, the same ones she sketched in the hospital. But now, finally, linguists made progress. They weren't letters. They were coordinates, or more precisely, frequencies. One pattern, when converted into a spectrogram, produced a sound, a low, guttural hum, like breath exhaled through stone. The investigators who heard it reported migraines, nosebleeds. One collapsed with seizure. We had to shut the speakers down. It was like something was listening back. Forensic specialists identified the 12 skeletons discovered in the first chamber. 10 were confirmed as Camden High students. 2 were adults, ages 40 to 60. Unknown, unmatched to any local missing persons. Their cause of death? Still uncertain. But bone compression matched a specific pattern, called crushed depth, commonly seen in divers not trauma victims. It's as if they've been dragged down by atmospheric pressure, one medical examiner said. But we're on land, and there's no chamber here deep enough to do that. And then came the most chilling part. All the skulls, every single one, had fine carvings on the inside of the cranium. Deliberate, intricate, microscopic analysis showed they weren't cut post-mortem. They were carved while alive. In her hospital room, Mallory began drawing again. But now she wasn't just sketching rooms. She was recreating moments. A page filled with figures in robes, standing around that slab. Another page, students, one by one, lying on the platform. She told her nurse in a whisper, "They made us dream louder." When asked what that meant, Mallory only replied, "He said the asylum was a lid. The real place was underneath." She drew Father Eli again, tall, thin, face hidden by a hood. But this time she added something, a shape above him, a ring of light. But the light had teeth. Investigators found dozens of carvings matching the word echo across the basement structure. In most cultures, echoes are thought to be harmless, reflections of sound. But Mallory described it differently. The echo wasn't sound. It was a memory looking for a body. She described it as cold, even in silence, present in corners you weren't facing, loudest just before someone vanished, and always before a disappearance. A phrase would echo from nowhere. "Are you ready for Second Life?" Sheriff Cordell later said, "This wasn't a ghost story. This was a containment story. Something down there didn't want to be remembered, so it used memory to erase them." If memory is a form of time, then what happens when time starts feeding on memory? And what was the echo offering? A second life, or a way to never leave the first one behind? On November 15th, a small robotic rover was sent through a gap in the far wall of the basement. What it revealed was broadcast only once, to a classified conference of federal observers. The room beyond the gap was hexagonal, blackened walls, metallic sheen, and a ceiling covered entirely in mirrors, each cracked at the same angle, as if something had stared up and shattered them with pressure alone. In the center of the floor, a pool, black, still, and impossibly deep. The equipment team tested its depth. They dropped a weighted line down 300 feet and never hit the bottom. When they retrieved the cable, the end had frayed, as if chewed. That room was sealed again. Immediately, 3 weeks after Mallory's return, a hiker not far from Grey Hollow stumbled on an old, mud-covered camcorder, found halfway inside the trunk of a hollowed-out birch tree. The initials JR were scratched into the side. It was Jordan Reyes' camcorder. After forensic restoration, a single 19-minute clip was recovered. Laughter. Mallory and Jordan are visible. Marcus in the background. Nia pacing. Mallory, "It's colder in here than it should be." Jordan, "It's literally 60 degrees. Stop being creepy." Nia, "You guys, this isn't funny. This place is. We shouldn't be here." Marcus, "Door shut behind us." "Chill. We're fine." Silence. A low sound begins. A distant hum. Mallory, "Did someone just whisper?" Unknown voice, not one of the students. "Are you ready for the second life?" Camcorder shakes. Screaming. Lights flicker. Then blackness. Only Mallory's face is briefly visible in the final second. She's not screaming. She's smiling, but her eyes are empty. Then the tape ends. On the morning of November 22nd, Mallory asked for a pencil. She hadn't spoken in days. She wrote something on the wall of her room, over and over, until her fingers bled. 3 words. "Don't trust time." She was sedated that afternoon. Doctors said she had regressed again. But before sedation kicked in, she whispered one final thing to the nurse watching her. "It can still hear me." They thought she was saved. But some places don't let you come back alone. And maybe Mallory wasn't the survivor. Maybe she was a messenger. Cameron was never the same. Not after the return. Not after the bones. Not after the basement. And definitely not after the memoir. People who had buried grief now had to exhume it. People who never believed now had to choose a side. Was Mallory a miracle? Or a weapon crafted by whatever was still in Grey Hollow's shadow? By Christmas, Cameron had divided into two camps. One, the truthers, who believed everything Mallory claimed and said the town had been warned decades ago and ignored it. They organized vigils, shared decrypted images from her journal, created forums to discuss Grey Hollow as a spiritual breach point. Two, the deniers, who claimed Mallory was either manipulated, mentally broken, or deliberately planted. They questioned DNA evidence, discredited the video, and said the basement was a fabrication or psychosis-driven hallucination. The town board issued a statement on December 18th. We urge the community to remain calm. The recovered individual is under care. Law enforcement and federal partners are reviewing the Grey Hollow site. No further comment. But behind the scenes, panic had already taken root, because on the night of December 16th, someone lit fire to the sheriff's office. Mallory's room was empty when the smoke cleared. The fire wasn't an accident. It was controlled, set in just two rooms, Mallory's wing and the adjacent records room. She wasn't found inside, but one thing was recovered from the debris. Her journal, pages intact, charred but readable. It was passed hand to hand until someone uploaded it. A file, simply titled MS 2001 to 2023. At first glance, the memoir was incomprehensible. Pages written backward, diagrams of impossible machines, repeating symbols, eyes, spirals, mirrors, staircases. Names that don't exist. The listener, the glass monk, Eli slash Eli, but deeper reading showed layers. Cybersecurity experts treated it like an encrypted file. They uncovered embedded codes, letters hidden within sketches, dots within eyes. When aligned properly, the codes formed sentences. They took the wrong ones. Some chose the second life. The rest were offered. You don't see the cage if you never try to leave. Echoes are how it breathes. It's not finished. Don't let learn your name. Reactions, online and off. Reddit threads exploded. Hashtag Grey Hollow trended worldwide for 48 hours. Podcasters, amateur cryptographers, and trauma survivors all claimed pieces of the puzzle. But then came the most haunting moment. A YouTube video posted anonymously, just 6 seconds long. A woman in a dark room, holding a mirror. She whispers, "You called it by reading this." Then silence. The video disappears in 24 hours. IP address, traced to Camden, Vermont. On December 22nd, Sheriff Cordell resigned. Before stepping down, he gave one final interview. His voice cracked twice. We ignored that place for too long. We joked about it, sent teens to dare each other. And now, he paused, then added, Mallory wasn't alone when she came back. When asked what he meant, he only said, she came back barefoot. But we only found one set of footprints. Was this a survivor's story or the first chapter of something else? If something ancient was buried, who buried it? And why was it watching us through her? By early January 2024, the federal government declared the Grey Hollow site classified and dangerous. Concrete was poured, drones forbidden. The entire area was blocked from satellite view by a quiet executive order. The site was renamed Echo Containment Zone Level 6. But no official explanation was ever made public. And yet, Those following the case noticed something strange. An encrypted PDF appeared on federal leak sites. Inside was an internal memo. Subject MS was exposed to multimodal mnemonic trauma and survived, recommending indefinite observation under Code 27. Risk factor, linguistic contagion. No further information, but the phrase was clear. Linguistic contagion. The idea that words could carry infection. 2 weeks later, in a truck stop bathroom in western Pennsylvania, a woman left behind a sketch taped to the mirror. The manager said she came in barefoot, didn't buy anything, didn't speak. The sketch showed 3 things. 1, a staircase made of bone. 2, a cracked mirror with someone behind it. 3, a phrase written beneath. If you hear the second question, don't answer. Mallory was caught on camera leaving. But what disturbed agents most? In the mirror behind her, there was movement, but she was the only one in the room. Those who lived in Camden started hearing it again in late January. Only at night. Only if they'd been at Grey Hollow before. A low hum, sometimes from the woods, sometimes from the vents. Once, from inside a phone call, even though no one had spoken. And then the whisper, "Are you ready for the second life?" Mallory came back, but so did something else. And now it remembers us. Some echoes fade, others wait for a name.